the framers realized that there were human rights violations during the process of arrests and all that, because some people were just like during maybe when the new constitution had not been promulgated, people were just arrested for no apparent reason or without understanding why they were arrested. Then they were detained for more than 24 hours before they are charged before the court. So the Constitution of Kenya under Article 49 provides the rights of an arrested person. So when a person is being arrested, the Constitution provides that he must be given the reasons as to why they are being arrested, and not just being given reasons. They must be given reasons in a language that they understand. So if a person only speaks Swahili, then the police should speak to him in Swahili. If he is sign language issues, they should find somebody who understands sign language to communicate to them that you're being arrested for this and this reason. First of all, that's one thing that they have to be given. Then the second thing is they should be told that you have a right to remain silent. You have a right to remain silent, and the consequences of not remaining silent. Like you've seen in movies, sometimes it's told you have a right to remain silent. Everything you'll say will be used against you in the court of law. So that's the consequence of now communicating. So that's a right that a person has, and it's more pronounced in the US. It's called Miranda rights. After somebody who was arrested, he was called Miranda. He was arrested without being accorded the right of an arrested person of being informed as to the reasons why he was arrested. So it was called Miranda rights. So it's famous by the name Miranda rights. So those are first of all the three things that an arrested person should be, the rights that he has. Then he has a right to call an advocate, to call an advocate. So when you are arrested, you can be told that you have a right to remain silent. Yes. So you call an advocate to be there, so that when you communicate with the police, there's somebody who understands the law and the legal import of what you're saying. So an advocate should be there, and you have a right not to be compelled to make a confession. Yeah. So in fact, there are some rules regarding confessions. So some people are arrested, then they're brought in court. They think they've confessed to a crime. Then they go before the court. Then they just say, oh, I confessed, I'm doomed. I confessed before the police, I'm doomed. Before somebody confesses to an offense, there are some guidelines within which the police should follow for that confession to be admissible before court.
What are some of these guidelines?
First of all, the person who's arrested should not be confined in such a way that in an inhumane manner, such that confession is the result of him being placed in a better place. He should not maybe be tortured. Then he should be given a right to call an advocate or somebody to be there present before he confesses, or he or she confesses. Then he has a right. That confession must be in writing. Must be in writing, and the confession is not only recorded by any police officer. It must be recorded by a person who has a rank of an inspector. That's a person that any confession that is recorded by a sergeant, corporal, or just a constable is not admissible before court.
Wow, that's amazing. So let me give a case in point of instances that we've seen, especially here in our country, Kenya. Sometimes you'd be walking along the road, especially for our boy children or the boy child. You'd be walking along the road and somebody will just come and handcuff you. They'd handcuff you to themselves, like one end of the handcuff to your arm and the other one to his own arm. And you'd be handcuffed and you'd be walking around the CBD, for instance, or around the Kariobangi roundabout. I've seen it happening. What happens then? You were not told you were under arrest. You were just walking and shoot there and then you just got a cab.
That's something. When you look at Kenya, the Miranda rights are not well pronounced in terms of its application. It seems the police do not honor it and they don't appreciate it. Some police officers, some are very gentle, but some police officers do not appreciate the import, the effect of they do not realize that this is a new dispensation and that this is and it's constitutional underpinning. So they just arrest people for no apparent reasons, and some people are arrested for loitering without any apparent reasons or having no reasons why you're loitering. You know, for somebody to arrest you for that, he must have an ability to read your mind, to know that you don't have a reason why you're loitering. So some of those arrests are unconstitutional, and when somebody takes to court, they can be quashed, such arrests.
Is there a law against loitering, quote unquote?
No, it's been declared unconstitutional. It cannot meet the legal master. It cannot meet the legal master because you cannot read somebody's mind. So that was a law that was, in fact, it has its origin during the colonial times when people were confined to certain districts so that you could not move from one place to another because you're working maybe for Mzungu. So you are restricted to a certain part. So it has some colonial past, so it doesn't have a place in the new dispensation in Kenya.
Okay, so what should one do the moment they are arrested like that? Once somebody arrests you, either reading or not reading the Miranda rights, what should be your first step? And even as you answer that, also tell us, am I free to refuse arrest?
No, you're first of all, when somebody is arrested, sometimes it's challenging because of maybe some of our police officers needs more training and all that, and also there are some people need to bring cases so that the procedure, so that the police can be educated as to how they can effect an arrest and all that, because there hasn't been any cases that have been brought against police for such cases or for such instances, and then you find that most people who are at the wrong end of the police are people from vulnerable communities, people without any means to access justice and all that, so their rights are violated. But in essence, the law protects them against such an arrest, and if they go to court, they can find reprieve if they move to court. But now that's an area where maybe we need some, the criminal justice system needs some fine-tuning. It's more about the policymakers to just educate people about the legal import of such things, so that maybe the vulnerable people their rights cannot be violated.
Okay, especially those with the dreadlocks.
Exactly.
Now, back to the question. So what should I do? I'm arrested. What should I say? Now that I'm not allowed to speak, should I just go like a cow being led to the slaughter, or is there something I can say or do that can make my arrest more amicable or more smooth?
Now, when somebody is arrested, now him or she has a right to call an advocate or a person to inform him that I've been arrested. So in that sense, the police must give you a reason why you've been arrested. You've been found, there's a report that has been made to the police that you stole this and this thing. So we are arresting you because of that. We are just arresting you to conduct investigations and all that. Then if you found that the investigation did not point to you, then you'll be released. So when that is made, you should avoid making confession or arguing and all that. The police have a right to arrest you. So when you go to the police station, you can call your advocate. You can call your advocate or somebody, you call them and inform them that I've been arrested. An advocate is good because he understands the law, that I've been arrested. They'll come to the police. They'll understand the reasons why you are arrested. Then once you've been arrested, you are at the police station. You have a right. You must be brought before the police, before the court. You must be arraigned before the court within 24 hours. Unless you are arrested during a public holiday or on Friday when the court doesn't sit. So it's so bad when you are arrested Easter, so you'll have to spend more than 4 days in prison. So once you've been arrested, you call your advocate, inform them that you've been arrested. So when you are arraigned before court, they'll understand why you've been arrested. Then they will ask for bail, lenient bail terms for you. Then under the statements showing why, the charge sheet and the statements against you showing why you've been arrested and all that, so that they can marshal their defense of your case.
Well, if you're watching us, this is EBN TV, and we're discussing the rights of an arrested person, as well as other given out forms of correction, especially in the penal code. Now, back to questions. I would love to understand. Okay, now I've been arrested already. Yeah. Must I spend the 3-4 days in jail just because I cannot be taken to court at that day? Is it not possible for the police to let me go and then they will come for me when they can take me to court?
That's a very important question, and very necessary in this case, especially for most people who are arrested. Yes. So the police have a right to give you bond.
Yes.
Based on the severity of the offense or the seriousness of the offense. So if it's this, like maybe drinking in then this misdemeanors. So such offenses, they can just give you a bond of 10,000. Then they tell you must report to the police before this and this date. So once you are arrested, your advocate, or you can ask the police. They can give you a bond. You deposit that amount, maybe 10,000, so that you are freed. Then you are told to attend court if it's on a weekend, so that you attend court on Monday. Then you are arraigned. Then you plead whether you are guilty or not guilty. Then you start the legal process. So it's possible for a person to be released. It's not cast in stone that once you've been arrested, there's no way you can be released. Yeah, you can be released. The police consider also the severity of the offense. Maybe if you're somebody that has the potential of running out of the country, or you're just somebody works here, so they consider several factors before giving you that bond. But it's possible you can be given the police bond. Yeah.
Let me ask, the difference between bond and bail.
Okay, yeah.
Because we hear that a lot. Released on a cash bail, released on this and this bond, whatever, the terms of the bond, blah, blah, blah. What's the difference between a bail and a bond?
So a bond is when somebody is asked to deposit, let's say something like title deed, or logbook, motor vehicle certificate, as security. As security for them being released. Let's say you've committed, you've been charged with burglary, and then the court gives you a bond of 500,000. So you will find a property worth 500,000, and it's not you to determine that this property is worth 500,000. So once you have the title deed or any document proving that you own such property, you will go, it will be valued. There's some valuers who value that this property is worth this much. Then it will be deposited to court. Once it's been deposited in court, you'll be released. But when it comes to cash bail, cash bail is when you're told to pay money as a condition for your release. So if you've given a cash bail of 100,000, the moment you deposit 100,000 in court, you'll be released as the case continues. So when you're acquitted, you have a right, the amount will be refunded. It's not that it just disappears.
What happens if I'm not acquitted?
No, even if you're not acquitted, unless now the court has should a fine, maybe a fine, maybe deposited 200,000, then the court issues a fine of 500,000. So the amount can be, if you are given an option of a fine, and if you don't pay the fine, you'll go to prison and you opt to take the fine. So that amount now will be used to pay up your fine. Okay.
So fine, bond, bail, different things.
That.
So you cannot, but you can still use
a fine. A fine is one of the penal sanctions. Once the court has heard your case, everything, and it's during its conclusion, they've determined that you've been guilty.
Yeah.
So that is now the penal sanctions after sentencing now. That's the penal sanction that's given. But bail and bond are given pending a hearing. Once you've been charged, they're given pending a hearing, or sometimes pending an appeal. Maybe you've had a case, the court has determined that you're guilty, and it's made let's say it's a magistrate court, it's made a determination that you're guilty, and you want to appeal now to the High Court. Now you can ask for bond pending appeal. You ask for bond, so you are out as your appeal is being heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something they can do, or they can also deny?
It's the court's discretion whether they can. It's a right in the Constitution to appeal, to be given bond, but it's not a must. It depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah, you cannot be denied bond for no. There must be reasons, compelling reasons, why the bond is not given. For instance, if there's a risk that you'll run out of the country, first of all. If there's a risk, sometimes even the courts can deny you bond because members of the public are baying for your life.
Yeah.
It's for your own good. Now you're denying the bond for your own good. So those are some of the reasons why the bond can be denied or the bail can be denied.
Okay, so we're from arresting a person through the court process. Now the judge or the magistrate has already made up his or her mind.
Yeah.
And you're guilty.
Yeah.
So let's get to the penal sanctions.
Yeah.
What dictates a penal sanction?
That's a very good question. And before I go there, I'd like to differentiate between two terms that usually affect people, usually confuse people.
Okay.
Conviction and sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've been convicted. Being convicted means the court has made a determination as to your guilt or not guilty. So it has weighed, it's part of the criminal system now. They have weighed, you've brought your evidence, the prosecution has brought its evidence, the court has weighed the two sides of the coin, and it has come to a conclusion that you are guilty. The court convicts you. Once it's convicted you, now the punishment after convicting you is what is called the sentence. Now saying you've been sentenced to 5 years, the sentence, you've been sentenced to pay fine of 5 million, now that is the sentence.
Before you even continue, why can't you receive the conviction and the sentencing on the same day?
Oh, that's a good one. First of all, the court is under obligation to weigh extenuating circumstances as to why you should not, as in they should weigh the reasons. Once they found you guilty, they should weigh the reasons why you should not be given such a sanction. Because crime is not the same. We can both steal, but we had different input in the theft. So crime is not the same. And some people, let's say for you go steal, you and a street kid. You know, for him, he'll say he didn't have any food to eat. So the punishment that you'll be given, as opposed to him, will be different because there's a reason why he committed the crime. So Section 216 and 389 of the Criminal Procedure Code provides that the court may hear the evidence by the accused person as to why a certain sentence should not be meted to them. Because maybe they say that this person will be given this sentence if he is found guilty. So the court should understand the reasons. Should understand the reasons to weigh why you committed the crime before making the sentence. That's why they don't happen together. The court finds you guilty. Then it gives you an opportunity to explain to it why a severe punishment should not be meted. Then it makes a determination why you should be sentenced for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's get to the sentencing already. And I'd ask this again, what dictates a sentence?
What dictates a sentence?
Yes, what dictates a sentence? How do they come up? Yes, you've said the court has to listen and weigh all that, but what determines how much of a sentence someone is given?
Okay. So to answer that question, we will first look at objectives of sentencing.
Okay.
Now, objectives of sentencing include retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Retribution is like revenge,
Yeah.
not per se, but it's close to that, an eye for an eye. Like you've made somebody suffer pain, now you are being, you will suffer the same. Mm-hmm. Another one is deterrence. Mm-hmm. It is meant to deter you from, to stop you, to make you afraid of committing the same offense again. Another one is restorative justice, to bring people together. It's not that once, that because you've been involved maybe with your family or a person who was a complainant, that there should be animosity. Mm-hmm. So it's meant to bring that. Mm-hmm. Then another one is incapacitation. Mm-hmm. A person who kills people, he should be put in prison to stop him. Yeah. Like the case of Philip Onyancha, who was, So he's incapacitated from continuing with this act. So he's incapacitated by being placed in prison. Mm-hmm. So the sentence that a person is, the sentencing is influenced by the statute. Mm-hmm. The penal code is the primary statute that defines the sentences that a person should be. Mm-hmm. Like they say that if you're found guilty of this offense, you should be punished for 5 years, 5 years in prison, 2 years in prison, or such a thing. Mm-hmm. So the statutes usually define the sentence that should be imposed on somebody. Those are some of the factors that determine the sentence. But then Kenya is evolving. Like the Constitution, there are some cases, there are some sentences, for, like, let's say for an offense like murder, the penal code says that if you are found guilty of murder, there should be a death sentence.
Okay. Yeah, and I was coming there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that they should be as a death sentence. Okay. But then there was this case that the Supreme Court ruled. Mm-hmm. It's called Murwatetu case. Mm-hmm. In the Murwatetu case, the accused persons who are the appellants were found guilty. Were found guilty of murder. Now, after the conviction, they were convicted of murder, which means that they were found guilty of murder. Then now the court did not have any, once you're found guilty of murder, because the penal code said shall be death, it's a must. The courts are compelled. The courts are compelled to impose a death sentence on you. So they challenged the statute. They challenged it because they found it was unconstitutional. And some of the grounds within which the case was brought to court, because they said that it did not afford them a fair hearing, because they made an argument that crimes are not the same, and people do not have equal involvement in a crime. Yes. Those are some of the reasonings. Then the second reasoning they made was that the decision or the act that says that you shall be found guilty of this, it's like the parliament which makes the law, now the penal code. It's like they are the ones who are determining the sentence. It is removing the court from that judicial mind, from putting its mind to a specific case and analyzing it and coming to a determination that, hey, you murdered, but there were some reasons. Probably somebody stole your land, somebody took your land forcefully, you've gone to court, maybe. Yeah, so sometimes now with criminal, if you react immediately, that's manslaughter. But if you sat down and premeditated, then you kill them, now that will be murder. But you see, that's a different situation with somebody who just decided I'll murder somebody without any reasons. So that shows that crimes are not the same. Yes. They are different levels. So those were some of the reasons within which they came to court. Then the court agreed with them and say imposing a death sentence, not death sentence, like a mandatory sentence. There's a difference between a death sentence and a mandatory sentence. A death sentence is when the statute said that you can be given a death sentence, there's that leeway.
Okay, yeah.
Like the court can give you from a light one till murder.
Yeah.
But when it's mandatory, now it's like removing the judicial mind after conviction. When it comes to sentencing, it can't reason. Once it has found you guilty of it, and then you can appeal. You are usually a person, when a person appeals on a case, he can appeal on conviction and sentence. But now when you are found guilty of murder, you cannot appeal on the sentence because the statute has bound them. So it was found to be unconstitutional, and it was repugnant to human rights and all that. So now the court quashed. So now a mandatory death sentence is not applicable in Kenya.
Very good. Which brings me now, and maybe to the last thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Case in point, what happened last week with Jerry Rungu. He was sentenced. I personally, as a human and in my fields, like the way Lady Justice Grace Nzioka put it, suffer death.
Yeah.
And to me it sounds like you're going to, like we're going
damnation.
To your nails, you're gonna feel the pain. Then we go to your toenails, and then we're gonna cut you into pieces till you suffer death. You know, that's what.
Yes.
But would you just help us understand what it means by suffering death? Because since 1987, according to the research that I've done, that was when the last person really got the death sentence.
Yes.
So what does it mean right now when somebody is accused and is convicted and found guilty and then sentenced to suffer death?
Okay. Now the penal code, according to Kenyan law, even if you're sentenced to death, there is a formula within which you are supposed to, that death is supposed to be arrived. In Kenya, it's to be arrived through hanging.
Yes.
Yeah. But in essence, the last person to be sentenced to death was Ochuka.
Yes.
Because Ochuka, for treason, he is the last person to be sentenced to death. And now there have been questions regarding now Lady Justice Grace Nzioka's decision. People have, they read in the newspapers that death sentence is not applicable in Kenya. Then they hear Lady Justice Grace Nzioka suffer death. So there's been some confusion there. But what the Murwatetu's case stated was that mandatory death sentence. Like if Lady Justice Grace Nzioka was given, she had no other decision. She could not reach any other sentence. She could not meet any other sentence rather than death. Now that would have been unconstitutional. But now this Lady Justice Nzioka's decision meant that she had a right. She could have imposed 3 years based on the Murwatetu's case. She could have imposed 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, but then she analyzed the case and decided that it's a death sentence based on the evidence. So she took the most severe punishment, but she could have given her 30 years. So she was not compelled like by law. So that's where the confusion is.
So what is the death sentence now?
The death sentence now, it remains hanging, but nobody has been hanged. Nobody has been hanged based on that. And there have been some legal scholars who have argued that maybe at this point in time, that's so draconian, death sentence is so draconian that we've moved through human rights and all that, that it shouldn't be permitted. But as it stands, there's been no court pronouncement that has said that death sentence is unconstitutional or not. So the court has every right to impose a death sentence, though it's just something that, okay, maybe the executive will decide at one point that we impose it, but at this point, it's not been imposed and all that. And there's no law that stops a judicial officer from imposing a death sentence.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. And that marks the end of today's session. I'm really running out of time. Thank you very much to everybody who has been watching. If you're watching us later on. Do feel free to drop in the questions there. Thank you very much, Mika. While watching and learning, Kabisa Masinzilo is watching, and everybody else who is tuned in, whether through Facebook, whether through YouTube, or directly through EBN TV across our free-to-air channels. Thank you very much for keeping us company. Thank you very much, Wakili, for your time.
Thank you for the invitation.
This was enlightening. I hope nobody will be arrested again and stay arrested.
We hope we'll also evolve.
I hope we also evolve.
Yes.
But now this is Know Your Law. I hope you've learned a thing or two about your rights, about your law. Keep texting ideas, comments, or suggestions that you would want us to cover, and I assure you, our lawyers are here and they're ready to tackle those issues. My name is Consolata Chibalonza. It has been an honor. It has been a blessing. And until next time, God bless.